What I'm gonna do here is capture an overnight burn. So I've got the watch here, so you can see it's almost 8:15 p.m. and it is March 3rd. And so what we're gonna do is get this loaded up. So I'm gonna stir that up, load it up, and then we'll let it catch, and then we'll see how it looks in the morning when I get up and come down. So here we are, we've got 6 pieces loaded into the stove. 3 good size oak splits along with 3 pieces of ash. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the door. We'll leave the draft control fully open here for a bit. We'll let things catch and you'll see when I can actually back it down and walk away for the night. It's now just after 8:45. I've had the draft wide open the whole time, so it's been about 25 minutes. Normally I don't let this burn down quite so much. This wasn't quite as hot of a reload as I normally like to do in the evening, but I was a little busy. So at this point what I'm going to do is just slow this down a little bit so that those flames don't wrap up into the top quite so much. So we'll cut it down about halfway to my first mark right there, and then probably another 10-15 minutes I'll be able to move it down just a little bit more. That'll kind of keep the fire under a little bit better control as we keep the temperature rising. So right now we're still basically 200 degrees up there. I need that to get up to 350 or 100 before I'm comfortable putting it down and just relying on secondary combustion to take over. Now just before 9. We still have great steady flame in here. If we look in, we can see there's some secondary combustion going up top there. So I am going to back this air down at least to that next line, and we're going to try and take it all the way and see if that secondary hangs on. If so, we'll be set for the night. And it's a little hard to see, but if you see that up top there, that is actually all secondary combustion. You can see that secondary air tube, and you see the flame kind of shooting out of it like jets on a propane grill burner. That's the smoke burning. So very little primary combustion now coming down from the wood. That's all secondary. You can see the flames kind of following the air that's coming in the air wash over the glass. And if we look at the thermometer there, we are now basically 325, 350. In the corner here above the door, that'll rise pretty quick now with the secondary going like this. That'll go right up to about 600. We'll check it again in a few more minutes, just see that everything's stable, but otherwise this is our overnight burn now. It seems like we're going to maintain secondary combustion, and that's always my goal, is to get things going until secondary takes over and let it burn nice and clean all night. It's now basically 9:15 p.m. Do one final check here. So we have basically all secondary combustion going. You can see it right on the top of the wood where that air is introduced. Temperature is now right around 450, and it's been holding there for a few minutes now. It may rise a little bit more as more of this starts to turn to coals, but right now we're pretty much just burning the smoke with secondary combustion. Very little primary combustion, as you can see down toward the bottom. So that's a nice efficient burn for overnight. We'll see how it looks in the morning. I have not touched the air control since the prior adjustment that I made to back it all the way down. So that's going to be a good setting for tonight. given the way everything's behaving. And this unit does behave pretty consistently, which is how I've been able to make use of the marks on the draft control rod to get back to settings that work well. It's now 6:05 a.m. on March 4th. Here we go. It's a little hard to see how much is in there, but there's still actually quite a bit of coals left. The blower's still going. Let me turn that off. We'll get this door open. Now, as you can see, there's still plenty of coals left in there. In fact, even some of it's still in the configuration of the wood in the back. Since most of the primary air comes in the front, things tend to burn down in the front. I'm actually going to shovel out a few scoops of ash here from the front right now where it's all burned down and out. And then I'll rake those coals forward, throw some pieces in, we'll get this going for the day. I've now shoveled some ash out of the front. We'll go ahead and rake this down and forward. You can see now that the air is getting in there since the door's been open. Things have gotten a lot more excited. Now note that this is basically 10 hours after I put the wood into the stove, and it's roughly 9 hours since the draft control was moved all the way down to the overnight setting, and this is what's left of the oak and the ash that I loaded in there last night. So that's how this holds the burn. The thermometer above the door, right around 200 degrees, and that's pretty typical for this amount of time. This would easily still have coals that would get a fire going real quick after 11 or even up to 12 hours. So I'm going to put a couple pieces in here and we'll get this going for the day. It's now 6:10. Shoveled ashes, put in a couple pieces of wood, and just like that, we have flames coming up. We're ready to roll for the day. I don't even have the draft control all the way open. That's kind of a typical daytime burn setting for a few pieces if I want to get a hot fire relatively quick. But you got to reload every couple hours when you have the draft set like that. So we're gonna let this get going, and we'll have to load it up again in a couple hours. But that shows you what you can do for overnight burns in this unit, which is the Regency i2400.